Call the December 10th meeting of the Planning Board to order. The first thing on the agenda is any A&Rs, and there are none, as I understand it. Okay, there are none. And we don't have anything to do, nope, okay. No, the minutes aren't on the agenda tonight.
So I'll move to table.
Nope, you don't even have
I
to,
don't
because
even
they're
have
not
to
on
do
the
that.
agenda, so. Okay, and next thing is the discussion. The applicant is Woods Hole Golf Club, site plan review to construct a 5,000 square foot building for golf maintenance and administrative facilities on 4.92 acres at 161 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole. For the applicant,
Hi,
Bob.
good evening, Pat. Members of the board. For your record, I'm Bob Ament, a Falmouth attorney, and Tom Bunker is the engineer for this project. He prepared the plan. Also here is Michael Lawrence, who is back there. He is the general manager of the Woods Hole Golf Club as of this year. And with him is Tom Flaherty, who is the course superintendent that makes the place look so good all the time. The Woods Hole Golf Course is about 115 acres on two sides of Quistit Avenue. And this is a approximately 4.9 acre piece of property that's on the east side of Quistit Avenue. The clubhouse is on the west side towards Quistit Avenue. Some of the golf course actually extends onto this piece of property. This is a green for the 15th hole. And there's an existing maintenance storage facility, 7,000 square feet. That's this building that was approved about 7 years ago and constructed. And the proposal is to add another building, which would involve some workspace for repairing things and administrative space for the course for superintendent and his crew, and a place for the people who work on the golf course to hang up their jackets and have a locker room and have some bathrooms, and a place where people can meet in the morning and other times to discuss what needs to be done and basically have staff meetings. So Tom prepared this plan, and he'll tell you a little bit more about the specifics.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker, and as Rob said, I did prepare this plan. This is a site where there's already as you said, a 7,000 square foot storage building. There's not even running water inside of it. They have an outdoor water spigot and all, but they do need the larger building, actually it's a smaller building, but an additional building for maintenance on the equipment and administration, training, and whatever. So this is the existing building, 7,000 square feet. This is the proposed building here. It's about half in what is now the gravel parking area. It's like half and half within the limits of what's there now. And so it'll be built back into there, into the hill. The parking, I should note there's a line missing from that plan. The plan, Bob just pointed that out to me. This edge of the driveway, this line is missing on the plans, but there actually is an edge to that pavement. It's right in here. And so this is paved down to this point. All the rest of it is a gravel, packed stone surface. There are 3 storage bins for materials here, and 3 here, and there are 2 more down in this location. The 2 that are down under this, where this building will go, are being moved, one up to here and one over to here. This building is taking up that space. Farthest from the road is a covered concrete pad where they'll wash down the mowing equipment, get the grass clippings off and all. That's what that building there is, and there's a recirculating type of system that will clean out the water. So that's going down there. This building, as I said, will have meeting rooms, bathroom, shower, and the couple of maintenance bays for the equipment. New parking will come off this way. There's 42 parking spaces here, which is a little more than enough for what they need with this use. This will all be a gravel surface, no pavement proposed. There will be drainage where the grading will come down since the existing road comes downhill quite a bit. This part of the driveway is higher, so then the new parking will slope down, down to a catch basin down in here, then a slight rise and back down again to another catch basin. All of it, the drain water, these two catch basins will flow out through the existing system that goes to, there's a kettle hole on the next lot over, which they also own. In addition, there'll be the downspouts from there will be connected into roof drains that will go directly into the pipe system for the drainage here. Septic system will be under the driveway in this location. There's obviously plenty of room. It's not exactly sized, partly because my engineer, Jeff, has been out on sick leave for a while. So we don't have it all nailed down exactly the size, but that's about the size it'll be in there. Equivalent roughly to a 4 or 5 bedroom house septic system. It's not a big system for the number of people we have in there. In addition, there will be lighting on the site. Will be on building mounted lighting on the sides. They're similar to what's up here now. There's on the existing building, there's some lighting that washes over this area. So on the new building, there'll be 4 pointing out this way, 2 on the gable end pointing up to this parking area, and 4 more on the back going toward this parking area. As you can see, there are no neighbors within the area to disturb any lighting, but I think it will be on a timer or a photocell type of switching system. Design review rather asked for planting, so we have 18 evergreen trees that will go up in the, I mean, it is naturally wooded up in there, but we'll have some evergreens that go in there also to break up the view, filter it a little bit. And this is all much lower than the road. We're about 25 feet below the road grade in this point. So it is down and out of the way, so it's not going to be a kind of a big visual impact on the traffic going by. Kind of obvious, but the other building, I said, has no utility, no running water and all, but this one will, since there's bathrooms and showers, so this will have full plumbing and heating in this one. I believe that's covered it for the site plan.
Okay.
I don't think it's an issue with me, but just out of curiosity, why are so many parking spaces needed?
Employees.
Although the grounds crew at the club only numbers about 30 during the busiest time of the year, but that might surprise you, that number, but it's large. Of course, there's a pro shop team, and the clubhouse operates as well. So at peak times in the summer, there are over 50 employees of the golf course working, which is sort of nice. A lot of people have jobs. But the goal is to have somewhat more parking than is required just for this building. If the 2 buildings together were considered as requiring parking under the bylaw at 1 space for every 300 square feet, well, that would be 36 spaces. So we're showing, I thought it was 44, Tom said 42, but there is somewhat more, but that's the explanation for it. It's good reason to have a place for the employees.
I don't think it's a big deal, but is the answer that this is going to be an employee parking spot?
Well, this is 17.
I'm sorry,
You
what
did
was,
say that's 44.
will this be for employees? That's its primary purpose, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Right now, the club has enough parking, but it involves parking along the entry driveway, and being able to have employee parking with a shuttle if necessary at this location
Makes
is
sense, yeah.
aesthetically much nicer.
Okay.
Paul?
I have a question, Mr. Bunker. if I may. There's 44 spaces shown on the drawing. by the
Yes.
way.
It's 44.
The existing station, existing storage has no water service, you indicated, so there's no wastewater or septic associated with that.
That's right.
And the drainage from the parking area is going all the way over to the low
It's
area
piped.
between the lots 3 and 4, is that correct?
Yes, the central part of it is a catch basin in the middle of that area, and
Goes all
otherwise
over
it's
to the-
piped out to that hole, yes.
Thank you.
Bob?
Tom, I see lights on the building. Are there going to be any lights out in the parking area?
No.
No.
Doug?
Are you guys also the owners of Lot 1?
That's what town is. Can you repeat that?
I'm just curious of the ownership of Lot 1.
And Lot 1 is owned by the town of Falmouth.
Oh,
It's approximately 18 acres, I believe.
Okay.
And it's the site of the Woods Hole Fire Station on Woods Hole Road.
Okay.
Has been, yeah, it's called Webster's Woods. It's been a discussion of another use of it as well. But so presently, except for the fire station near the road, it's a vacant wooded piece of property. The Lot 4 is a bit over 4 acres. That's owned by the golf course. The next property to the north is a substantial undeveloped piece of property. Across the street is a golf course and driving range that runs off to the north. So, and 40 acres of golf course to the south. So this particular location doesn't have any residential abutters.
Right.
This project does require a special permit. We will be going to the Board of Appeals, and that's because the golf course, which started in 1898, 1899, is a pre-existing non-conforming use. It can be allowed by special permit as a not-for-profit use, but it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. So the present building was approved by a special permit. We're going to the Board of Appeals on January 9th.
And then that old existing foundation, is that just a foundation only? There's no...
Just an old stone, nothing on it.
It's part of the old caddy camp.
Since there's no residential abutters, I'm not concerned with it, but I was curious about that. Okay, and I have one more question about the drainage. I see you got a proposed sump pump in the new parking lot, but wouldn't that drain naturally by gravity?
That's a sump within it's a solid catch basin with a sump, which is there to filter out, let the solids and things settle.
Oh, I see, it's a clean
It's that
out.
type of sump, it's not a sump pump. Yes,
Oh,
it
okay.
goes by gravity to the hole. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, you mentioned a kettle hole. Where, can you show me where in the plan it is? Because I can't seem to make it out.
That's
Well, it's
over here in Lot
It's
4.
partly shown here on Lot 4. It's shared between
Okay, all
lots 3 and 4.
right, thank you.
Ralph?
Yes, is there no handicap parking required because it's not, there's no retail? Is that right?
Well, there is no public access to these buildings. There, of course, would be handicapped, is handicapped parking at the clubhouse.
Right. But none at this facility? I don't know, is there any required?
It's not a building that's going to be used by the public, so it's not required.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, did I understand you to say that this new parking area is not going to be paved?
That's
It will
correct.
be gravelled?
Yes.
Okay. Again, it's a matter of curiosity, because you've got catch basins there. When you have compacted gravel, you don't get as much runoff by any means as you do from paved, do you?
Not as much, but it can still build up. Obviously, we have to have low points.
You have to grade it
can't-
properly still.
It has to be graded properly, and it will take some water, but on the smaller rains, it'll just go in. So on the smaller rains, there'll be no water going into it. It's just in some deluges, then there'll be,
Yeah.
water will go in.
I really like that idea of the greater infiltration area. Where you're showing stones there, that is a retaining
There
wall
has to be some retaining wall, at the corner of that hill has to be cut out for this.
for leveling the parking. Okay. All right, does anyone else have, yes?
Town water and coming in from the Quistit Road?
Yes.
You show a existing paved driveway coming into the location of the new building. How do you access the existing building?
It doesn't, actually, the pavement doesn't come in all the way. The existing pavement comes to here, and this is all just packed crushed
Down.
stone.
I'm curious, what's the significance of the 46.2-foot radius?
That's for a truck turnaround that we had on there, just for planning purposes, to
Nothing.
make sure that it would,
So trucks would come in and go through there and get to the facility, is that right?
yeah, the truck, this whole area here will be used, by both buildings.
Any further questions, planning board? Public, any questions? Please come up here. They're televising us tonight, so.
I just want to be clear where it is exactly. Is this where the driving range is?
Is approximately across from the driving range.
Well, this area where you pointed to is actually the 16th hole. The driving range is more to the north.
Okay. Okay, then we'll have a decision next week, I assume. But no problems have arisen here tonight, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to the marijuana treatment centers, the zoning article for the April 2014 town meeting. And I'm assuming everyone has had the chance to thoroughly read it again with the changes. Are there any questions of Marlene? Because there are very few changes. It's only the change to zone to, business to, I think that was the only change in it, actually, to business to. Okay,
That was, the last.
right,
round.
the last iteration.
The round before that was the sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I meant the last one.
Yeah, business
Yep.
too.
Yep, okay.
By special permit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that we put in there too,
Yes.
when we did it with business too. Does anyone have any questions of Marlene? Okay, then I would like to have a motion, please, to put it on the April 2014
Okay, I will
board.
move it. I move that we put the proposed marijuana treatment center bylaw on the warrant for the April 2014 town meeting agenda. Warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okay. The demolition delay bylaw, and Brian was going to, when I met with him, was going to walk us through this a bit. So Marlene, since you're Brian in
Yep.
disguise tonight.
So, you may or may not be aware, there was a petitioner article on the November town meeting just a couple months ago to change some of the procedures for this has to do with the historical commission. They administer the demolition delay bylaw. And out of that discussion from that petitioner's article, you were asked to take a look at how to provide notice to people when properties that are subject to the demolition delay bylaw are going to be discussed. So the demolition delay bylaw is, we have a list of properties that are subject to it, and it's a 6-month hold on a demolition permit. So the Historical Commission is not issuing a permit, they're waiving the 6-month delay. So because there's no permit in question, we're not structuring this as a hearing, but we are structuring this language, it's actually the same exact language that you use for site plan review. So it's a public meeting, just like there's no permit issued for a site plan, but you do provide notice. So people are made aware that it's on your agenda and that it will be discussed at a particular meeting. So we're suggesting that that process be used in this case too, and that is an advertisement in the newspaper that runs once a week, at least a week before the meeting, and it's mailed notice by regular mail, not certified mail, to abutters within 100 feet. So we think that it's been used very well for site plan review. It gets enough people get word of it that if it's interesting to the neighborhood, they can alert others, but it's not as burdensome as a special permit or definitive plan where you have to wait for 3 advertisements to run and you delay the process. The 1-week advertisement isn't a burdensome delay, but waiting for the whole series of 3 ads to run adds a lot of time. And certified mail adds a lot of cost, or it can add a lot of cost if you expand that radius. So we're in interest of not delaying the process too much and not adding to the costs too much, we're suggesting 1 week in the newspaper and regular mail. Oh, and I should tell you, what you're doing here tonight is making a recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen. You wouldn't actually be sponsoring the article that would go on the warrant in April. It would be, the Historical Commission is a appointed board by the Selectmen, so the Selectmen would be taking your recommendation and they would be taking the article from there. So it's not a zoning article, it wouldn't be one of your articles.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the language and what it does?
Just one.
Doug?
I just want to be clear that the line that's got a line through it is not actually crossed out. That's just a misprint.
No, that will
That's the
actually be
existing.
removed. We're recommending that be removed because there's no permit issued, it wouldn't be a hearing as defined. So it would read, the commission shall solicit public comment. A public comment is what you do at a site plan when there's no permit. A public hearing is what you do when you're actually issuing a permit.
I see. That's the change.
Yes. And then we would be adding the advertising and notice.
Rich?
Okay.
Don't you need a permit to demolish any building?
The permit's actually issued by the building department. It's a demo permit. This is a waiver of the time hold.
Okay.
And then that gets submitted to the building department and they actually issue the
So
permit.
this is a waiver that allows the permit to issue.
Yes, faster.
This only applies if the applicant applies for a waiver, correct? It doesn't affect the 6-month delay process
Only if someone asks to
for a
waive
waiver.
it.
So the policy that's in place right now stays the same. This is only if they ask for a waiver of the 6 months.
Yes.
No problem.
Anyone else have any questions?
I have another question.
Yeah,
What is your understanding of the impetus behind this?
I think people just want to know when buildings that are on this list are going to be discussed and voted on by the Historical Commission. Right now, there's no mechanism for sending out any notice or doing any advertising.
Now, the Historic District Commission can vote that a building not be demolished.
The Historic District Commission is a totally separate board with a totally separate set of rules.
Okay.
This is the historical commission, and it only comes into play if someone asks for the demo delay waiver.
Well, then, do they control what happens to historic buildings, apart from whether they're in historic districts?
Yeah, so these are we have a list of historic buildings that are outside of the districts,
Okay,
that are subject to the 6-month hold on demolition.
okay. Can the historic commission say that a building shall not be raised?
No, it's only a delay.
Okay.
Ralph?
Right, so the mechanics of this are, if we agree that this language is appropriate, the planning board will send a letter to the historical commission saying this is our recommendation?
Actually, you'd be reporting back to the selectmen. The selectmen asked you to take a look at this, so you'd be recommending an action back to the selectmen. And we would copy the historical commission, of course, on that, but this was actually a request by the Board of Selectmen.
But that wasn't, the request by the Board of Selectmen wasn't part of the petition article?
No, it was after town meeting. It was.
Okay. Because the petition article, I believe, was either withdrawn or didn't pass or something.
I believe it did not pass.
Right, I can't remember the,
It was withdrawn, I'm sorry.
I thought it was withdrawn, yeah. Okay, because of the language or something like that to this effect, okay. All right, so I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, no, we
I want to
have
ask
to,
another question. What is your understanding of the purpose of the demolition delay?
That's outside of the scope of what the selectmen asked you to look at. We're only looking at notice.
I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, what you're saying is the Historic Commission cannot to prohibit a demolition, so all this really does is it speeds up the process of demolition, and all it is really about is to allow somebody to make some money off a piece of property by destroying an old building faster. That's what it's all about.
But that's not what you were asked to give them a referral on. So I understand if you, I think you need to answer the question that you were asked. If you want to add to that, you can, but this is on the agenda because you were asked a very specific question to make a recommendation about how to provide adequate notice.
Jim?
Well, I believe Rich is onto something here. I aptly know this bylaw really well, and I don't think this is what they actually want to accomplish. This is not going to solve the issues that they're talking about. The 6-month delay will still be there, it'll always happen. This is only the waiver aspect of it, and there isn't, the most recent issues really weren't waiver issues. It was the problem that I'm familiar with, because I actually have done something on this, and I don't think we should change that, but I'm just going to explain them to help them. I think they've made a mistake in drafting this to accomplish what they want. What you really want to do, and Richard's right on to it, is you have to change not do 107 of it, but actually make the filing also have notice at that same time. And that's really what came up to. The only reason why I know it is I filed, I did all the paperwork, and no one knew about it for months, because within the town structure, right on the board, right on the application you file, it says CC Building Department, CC Historic District Commission. I filed it with the town clerk, and 3 months later, I didn't hear anything, so I asked for a waiver, and everyone went crazy because I asked for a waiver. And 3 months after that, the 6 months are up, so the waiver was meaningless. So I think this is really either an ill-advised or misdrafted document if they want to accomplish what I believe that they were trying to accomplish. And the notice should actually be when you file for the demolition. Not to help them, but because I don't agree with the bylaw, but I think they've made a mistake. This won't help them at all.
Well, I need to explain something though, because it doesn't show up in front of a public board on an agenda unless it's asked for, unless they.
Well, I think that's the issue, because The one I chose, I could have never applied for a waiver and no one would even have known about it, and they still would have been upset, because the process didn't have public notice when you apply for the demolition, and it still doesn't. And not that I want to help them, I think they've made a mistake on what they're doing here.
I think to make things, I think if you follow the way things are permitted, people don't get notice when someone files for a building permit. So, hold on, let me finish here. You get notice when it's going to be discussed in public.
Right.
That's what we're notifying people of, that they have a chance to comment. Not that a permit is issuing. We don't, if your neighbor is applying for a building permit, we don't notify you. We're notifying you that when, where, and the topic, if you want to comment on it.
I understand that. What I'm saying is, the applicants will just never file the notice, and it'll never get the public comment, and they'll say, we'll be right back what they're complaining about. This does not solve their issue.
Well, the applicant doesn't file the notice. The town does that once they request the waiver.
But let's say what'll happen is, the applicants say, well, look, I'm not apply for a waiver, that's going to be public notice. I'm going to fill out this form, wait my 6 months, no one's going to have any say, I don't have to talk to the neighbors, and away I go. I don't think that that's what they want. They're here, you can ask them themselves, but I think they made a mistake.
Okay, but I want you to remember, you were asked a very
I'll answer that
specific
question, no problem,
Okay.
I think we're wasting our time with this, though. I think this is it.
I think that is important discussion, but it's outside the scope of this.
It's outside the scope I'm
And I
reaching, I
I think
understand
that they
that.
definitely need to consider putting a public process on the demolition permits, but that's a different matter.
Whole different issue.
That's all I wanted to say.
Rich?
Is there anything right now that prevents the Historic Commission from just taking out a little block in the enterprise saying that a request for the demolition on this property has been,
Yes, they're not authorized to do that by law. They
are
have
they
to,
prohibited to do?
if you're not authorized, you can't do it, yeah. So that's why at the last time meeting, the Historic District Commission put an article in front of town meeting to ask for authorization. So because you would not be able to provide notice for site plan review if it wasn't in 240. So unless you're given the authorization to do it, you can't do it unless you're given that authority.
Ralph?
Right, I don't have any issues with going ahead with this, and if the Historical Commission wants to change the bylaw, then let them do it.
Okay?
Okay. Is the board
No argument.
satisfied with our conversation at this point? So I can ask for public discussion here. Okay. Nancy?
I'm Nancy Hayward. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Falmouth Historical Commission. I would like to answer a couple of questions which you've brought up. The Historical Commission did not write this. This was presented at the 20th November meeting of the Historical Commission. The chairman of the Historical Commission, Heidi Walsh, had this. And she handed it out, and she wanted instant comment on it. I said I was not able to comment on it until I read it. The demolition delay bylaw does need some additional information in it. This came about from a meeting of the Historical Commission on July 17th, at which time the demolition delay bylaw and the demolition of a building in town was being discussed. There was an astonishing public reaction of public citizens who were at that meeting. During that meeting, which I chaired, the chairman was not there, I had before me the demolition delay bylaw. As I stared at the section number 107-4 in the demolition delay bylaw, which is the waiver of delay, I looked at this and I thought we could have done this differently. We are the Historical Commission, and we are supposedly controlled by Section 48D in the Code of Massachusetts. The Planning Board and the Selectmen and the members of the Historical Commission should read this section of the state code. That is, I guess it's Article 40. Mr. Latimer will correct me if my use of that term is incorrect, and it's Section 8D, Historical Commission, Establishment, Powers, and Duties. What should also be read and reread by members of the Historical Commission, including me, is the whole demolition delay bylaw. This bylaw starts out with the intent and purpose of the bylaw, which has not been absorbed appropriately. Within this section 107-1, intent and purpose, it says, through this bylaw, owners of significant buildings are encouraged to seek out other alternatives to demolition that will preserve, rehabilitate, or restore such buildings. And residents of the town are alerted to impending demolitions of significant buildings. And this is the part of the bylaw which has been neglected. I do not believe that this 107-4 waiver of delay, which I believe Brian Curry drafted, totally meets this. After the meeting of July 17th, on the 24th of July, I went to Mr. Duffy and Ms. Harris, the town lawyer and assistant, and discussed the fact that I thought that the bylaw needed an adjustment in the 107-4 waiver of delay. And I had told them why I was coming, and when I got there, supposedly they had, I gathered that they had read it, and they agreed with me that this needed some changes, that it needed some rewriting. What needs to be done for spring town meeting? And I will say that I do not have the timeline for all the action that needs to be taken on an article for spring town meeting. I believe that the thing that needs to be stressed at the start of the paragraph on waiver of delay is that the commission will be accepting public comments. Now, the way the state law is written, the Historical Commission, which has not quite been acting as a standalone commission, we have no real administrative assistance, and written, this is as far as notice is concerned. We should be able, and we have written into this demolition delay bylaw, I believe it's 107.8 enforcement, and there is written into this the ability, all right, I'm not as well prepared as I thought it was, because it allows enforcement and remedies. There can be a fine, and I cannot believe that we cannot afford to have notice printed, and I cannot believe that we cannot print in the enterprise a notice for this. But I have not discussed this with Mr. Duffy, and I had not discussed this adjustment which Mr. Curry had handed out at the Historical Commission meeting on the 20th. I believe that that it is the job of the Historical Commission to write this change to the waiver of delay, which will encourage the members of the Historical Commission to remember that what they are doing is preserving and protecting the significant buildings, and to argue that argument and not just try to fend off the lawyer speaking for the lawyer or the applicant speaking for demolition. I believe that's the end of what I have to say. If anyone has any questions, I would be willing to try to answer them. Madam Chairman.
I'm really trying to help you. I have really good knowledge of this bylaw. I've studied it, and you're just one section off. You need to be 107.3 under procedure, and after 107.3, it goes to 6. You need to put this at 7, and it'll accomplish what you want. Putting it where you want now is not, it's not going to help you. That's my own opinion. You may want to have a lawyer read it, someone more knowledgeable than myself, but I think you really should take a look at it, because I believe you've misplaced what you're trying to do. It is not going to accomplish what you want, and it'll probably lead to more trouble in the future, and I'm just trying to point it out. So you should have somebody that's very knowledgeable take a look at it and see what they say. Maybe Richard knows more about it than I do.
I'd like to look at the papers that she's holding, not necessarily the bylaw, but apparently the statute. That's what's, and I will read into the record the correct citation once I get to look at it, to see what it is. Could I look at that, Nancy?
Madam Chairman, I would be perfectly pleased to give this to Mr., now I'm going to go to the bank.
Latimer, Richard
I don't like to
Latimer.
read off
What you
of
want
screens.
is what I copied out of the books over at the Falmouth Public Library.
Sure, okay.
Please accept that,
Okay.
and it should be read.
All right, what this is Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8D. That's the
Is that the
citation.
section which you wished?
Okay, I wasn't sure when she was talking about Code of Massachusetts Regulations or the general laws. This is the general laws, Chapter 40.
GL Chapter 40,
Right.
Section 8D. Okay,
Madam Chairman,
yes.
could Mr. Fox repeat his section in procedure? We did have the original, the person who had put in Article 25 for town meeting, which was withdrawn, was trying to make an adjustment in procedure. If Mr. Fox could repeat his suggestion in the steps of the procedure, which step was he referring to?
I believe you need to move it one section up, but you're trying to do it in 104, which, what I said when I first commented that, all you're doing is just saying the person just won't apply for a waiver and no one will ever find out anything, and no, it won't help you get the notice. Where if you go to 107.3, under Procedure A, and there's 6 things you have to do under A, make a 7 and put the notice there. It'll accomplish the goal that you're trying to accomplish, and it'll put notice out when it's filed with the town clerk and when it's filed with the Historic Commission. And so if somebody at the Historic Commission is not here and doesn't read it, and the town commissioner doesn't read it, and it sits in the town clerk's office for 4 months, which we know can happen, putting it here under procedure will solve your problem. All you're doing, in my opinion, and it's just a practitioner, not a lawyer, put it under the waiver delay. People just won't ask for the waiver, and they'll just wait the 6 months and they'll tear it down. Won't get you anything of what you want to do. And I think if you read it carefully, you'll understand that that's what happened the last time. Just pointed it out.
Rich?
Okay, I'm going to start with the premise that if I file a request for a demolition permit with the building inspector, that is a public record. I have no expectation of privacy in that. In fact, anyone in the enterprise could go on a routine basis to the building inspector's office, let's say every other week, and say, well, what demolition permits have been requested over the past 2 weeks, and the building inspector would have to show them. And there'd be nothing to stop that reporter from then putting a news story in that a demolition permit has been requested on this piece of property. So there's no expectation of privacy. Now, I'm reading the statute, and it says, the purpose of this commission is for the preservation, protection, and development of the historical or archaeological assets, the preservation of archaeological assets or historical assets in the town. That's the general purpose. We go down further as to what the commission may do. Nowhere does it says it may not publicize public records that it becomes aware of, but it does say, commission may hold hearings, may enter into contracts with individuals, blah, blah, blah. I'm just a whole lot of things. Then it says, may make and sign any agreements, and may do and perform any and all acts which may be necessary or desirable to carry out the purposes of this section. So, in my view, that's a pretty broad scope of authority for the purpose of providing notice to the public of a public record that it becomes aware of that affects its mission. I don't see how anyone could sue them for that. I don't see how anyone could say that was ultra-virus by just saying, putting a little notice on a weekly basis. No permits have been requested this week. no permits have been requested this week, and then one comes in, say permits have been requested on these properties. People who are interested will get notice, and we don't have to go through the process of authorizing hearings. No,
I don't want to belabor this, but if you do it that way, here's how it works. If you understand the bylaw, you file with the clerk, and right on the application, it says you cannot file with the building department until you wait the 6 months. So the triggering that you're asking for is not going to happen. The 6 months are going to go away, and then the application's going to come in. It's going to be in the newspaper, and everybody all upset because we didn't find out about it. And the same issue that we're talking about will be right back now. This is not a state law. It's the procedure in our demolition bylaw that I believe is flawed. Not that I want to help you write it, but I don't want to go around and around on this again. I think we should get it straightened out once and for all. I think you should have someone take a look at putting it in 107.3A7, and I think that you might get legal advice that's familiar with this bylaw, and they might agree with me. That's what I'm recommending.
Ralph?
It appears to me that the notification to the public needs to be in two places. It needs to be in the initial filing, and it also needs to be in the place where if there's a waiver asked. It is pretty simple. See, we're just asked to address one of those two issues. The first issue about addressing when it's initially filed is the job of the Historical Commission, not ours. We are being asked tonight only to comment on notification about the delay, waiver of the delay, okay? So there's nothing wrong with us going ahead with this and saying we can recommend to the selectmen that this language is appropriate. That doesn't mean to say that the Historical Commission might object to this language or want to change it, because certainly once we get to the selectmen, they're going to go back to them and say, is this okay with you, and do you want to do anything further? I think we're really grinding through this, and it's not necessary. And the state statute, according to what Ms. Hayward said it says that the public will be alerted to a demolition process. Well, when that word alert is in the state statute, it says to me that to alert the residents of the town, that needs to be incorporated into the town's bylaw. Alerting is not saying you will hold a meeting or a public hearing. It's saying you will alert. Well, how do you alert them? You certainly can't rely on the press to alert the public. That's not good enough. People don't read it. They might, the press may choose not to publish it. It's not good enough. You have to alert people in the same process, in the same way that this has been written by Brian or whoever wrote it, and it needs to be done in two separate areas of your bylaw, and it's not our job to do that. We've been asked only to tell the selectmen, what do we think about the language in reference to the waiver of the demolition bylaw? That's all we're being asked to tonight, and I don't choose to discuss it any further.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
thank
Nancy.
you for your time.
You're very welcome. And I would like to comment, this is exactly, I agree with what you are saying, Ralph, and just as we have done with the ZBA, we can give our opinion on this tonight, as we've been asked to do by the selectmen, but we can also add further advice to the selectmen that we believe to accomplish the full intent of the Historical Commission, that this needs to be repeated in the other place within the bylaw too. As it is, it's incomplete to fulfill their desire. Does that satisfy?
That's how I feel.
Okay.
I'm only one.
So then, what I would need is two motions. One, to recommend this, if you feel that we can do so, to the selectmen with the language, yes. Marlene?
Pat, if you don't mind, if you don't mind, if you could wait
I
until
can.
next week
Of course.
for that second part.
Mhm.
I'd like to, because we have not discussed that with council, and we have discussed this, we're confident on recommending this to you and explaining this to you. I would like to take a little bit more time. I understand what you're getting at, but I'm not sure, I haven't had a chance to fully think about that yet. So if you wouldn't mind holding off on that, we are meeting next week and we can schedule it.
I don't mind, I'd rather have it done correctly.
If you want to go ahead and vote the 107-4 language, that's okay. And then we can come back to you with something in writing that we feel confident is technically correct for the procedural part.
I
Rich?
think we should do both at once, see what both are.
I do also.
So put this off for a week.
Yeah.
I would comment, however, that I am against in principle the idea of, and this would become a routine thing, could become, of just letting this be waived or that request for waiver be the first time the public gets notice of this. One thing that can come up, and one of the purposes that we're talking about under the bylaw is to allow for the possibility of other dispositions of the property. And the sooner people in the public are aware of that this building is to be demolished, the sooner someone, if there's somebody out there, could come to the applicant, the new owner, and say, we'll give you a better deal. You know, things like that do happen. Maybe they're not always going to happen, fine, but at least it gives a better chance for somebody to come out with that kind of thing, if they get the notice right away, as opposed to, like, at the last minute, somebody comes in for the waiver with only 1 month left. There's very little opportunity for somebody to come up with that kind of a plan. So,
But you can come in with an application for a waiver, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. And then the clock starts ticking on that. So I think if we wait for another week, so that Brian and Marlene can take it to Frank Duffy and have him take a look at it to accomplish the other end of the equation, and we look at it in its entirety, I think we're better served. That's my opinion. Ralph?
Well, I question that, and that is because this is something that should be done by the Historical Commission. Why are we drafting something for them? Now, Marlene, do you sit in on the Historical Commission meetings?
No, I do not.
Does anyone in the planning staff?
No.
Okay.
I can.
So why then are we going to ask our staff to draft something for the commission when it's their job and it's their bylaw? Why are we doing that?
I was trying to be helpful.
All right, that may be so, but I mean, we haven't been asked by the Historical Commission to do this.
We were asked by town meeting, I believe.
We
It was
were not.
remanded
We were
back
asked
to us,
by
if I'm
town meeting
remembering
to
right.
only chime in on the waiver of the demolition bylaw, not the original bylaw.
Okay, true.
I think the
So I'm saying, I just don't understand why we are doing that.
I'm out of
For
order.
the sake of the town.
I think there's a possibility that when the selectmen referred this to us, they're asking for input, and just like what we're giving. So I think they're probably on the right track to send it to us for input. And if we give a little extra input to help them along, it's not a bad thing. As long as it doesn't take up our staff time.
The only thing I want to warn you here, and we see it all the time with zoning bylaws, is you start messing with one place and it causes unintended consequences. This is not a bylaw we administer. We're not super familiar with it. And for us to meddle and tinker with it without fully understanding it, it will cause problems on the road. I don't know what or how, but it will. I know that much. So if you do want to go beyond the scope of the request, then we just need to be careful that we don't make things worse, is all I'm getting at. Right now, Ralph is totally correct. You've been asked to do a very specific thing. At the very least, you should do that. You should answer that question, and then you can say, hey, the whole thing needs to be looked at, but that's not your job.
Okay. Rich?
Again, if I were to just deal with this just by itself, I would say no. Period. No. If I were to be asked to deal with this in combination with something that gives more effective notice from the get-go, I'd say, well, why not this in combination with that? Yeah, it would be a complete process that best serves the function of the commission, as opposed to just something that eases it up for the developers to get the quick buck without fulfilling the mission of the delay in the first place, which is to allow an opportunity for something to emerge that will allow for a better result than the simple demolition. And I'm not saying that's always going to, but it's just allowing that to happen.
There are two reasons to give it another week, I would say. And if you agree with me, we will give it another week. One is that we have just seen it tonight for the first time to discuss the language here. And two is that there has been question raised as to whether this fulfills the desire, the original desire of the Historical Commission. And we do have another week that we can have town council look at it and see what his advice might be. So I would think that we can give it that additional week and see what happens.
I move we table this article till next week.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we table this for action another week. All in favor?
Before
Wait a
vote, can I
minute,
ask a
Paul,
question?
yes.
We have other people in the public here. Maybe we should take input from the rest of the
I
public.
thought we had already had input
We
from
had
everybody who
Mrs.
wanted
Hayward.
to.
Does anyone else have any?
I'm sorry, I didn't see anybody else's hand up.
Before table.
All right.
Table the
So
table.
we'll table the table.
Malcolm Donald, 124 Ambleside Drive. Thank you very much for your discussion on this and looking at this. Yeah, this bylaw obviously needs some work, as from what you've talked about tonight. There are a number of issues here that need to be changed or corrected or enhanced. Number one, which you've already touched on, which is probably the most important thing, is public notice. And, you know, the public really needs to know as soon as possible when that demolition permit application is filed. The public needs to know as soon as possible. Secondly, there's language in the bylaw regarding documentation of the building, and that documentation should be done according to an approved method by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Then another point is that that documentation should be archived by the town clerk, who should have responsibility for...
Madam Chairman, are these in this bylaw?
Yeah.
Is this in order?
Well, what we're doing is just discussing this tonight. We've given it a little bit more leniency, but from what you're reciting tonight, I think you guys need to be talking with town council about perhaps redoing the whole bylaw to meet the needs, because this is far more extensive than what we've been asked.
Okay.
And the only way we enlarged it was because we thought, well, maybe this needs to go into the first part of it too, the notification part, but you're asking for a lot more here in that regard. In that regard, it's really rewriting the whole bylaw, I think.
And how would that get accomplished?
That's,
I can answer that.
okay.
The Historical Commission has to draft it and submit it to the warrant for the selectmen to make a recommendation on it. This isn't your bylaw, it's not
No.
a zoning bylaw, so the planning board wouldn't write it and wouldn't submit it. The way it was originally adopted was the Historical Commission at the time, 2005 or 6, wrote it up, put it on the warrant, the selectmen gave it a positive recommendation and it passed. So the burden is on the historical commission to rewrite their own bylaw.
And how can they get proper wording? They seek legal counsel to do that, I would assume.
And to a point, town council can review it, but he won't draft a bylaw.
Okay. All right. So I think that's the next step for getting more extensive changes to the bylaw.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And if you happen to have an attorney that you know who might lend some help.
It says here that they may accept gifts, they may, no, they may sign agreements, so that means they could retain a consultant.
Sure,
for the purpose of
exactly,
doing it.
to get it done.
They need a budget to do it, but
Cost.
Okay, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. Barbara Wayne, West Falmouth. I have a point of consternation about the difference of support that the town gives to the Historical District Commission versus the Historical Commission. The Historic District Commission gets time and effort on the part of Marlene. There is valuable assistance rendered by the town. The Historical Commission, which is dealing with these orphaned properties because they aren't situated in historic districts, gets no town support. And here we're talking about the Historical Commission, 4 people, having to get a consultant or some legal. Where is the money coming from here? Why are we not supporting the Historical Commission the way we do the Historic District Commission? I'm flabbergasted that we could be talking about, well, go get yourself a consultant in order to rewrite your bylaw.
I can't answer that question.
It's not our job.
But where do we get the answer to that? I mean, I'm appealing to you.
Talk to the selectman or the town manager, because I don't know where that might come from. I really don't.
All right, but I'll ask you to share my consternation on this, that historical properties not protected, excuse me, put that in quotes because of what we've gone through this year, but you have historic properties inside historical districts which get some protection from the town, some support from the town, including all the way to legal counsel, and here we have this other orphaned body that is a town commission. I mean, we should all be sitting here.
It's an appointed body, appointed by the selectmen, and I believe it would be with them that you have to take that question up.
And definitely will. I'm just asking you to share the incredulity I have that it would have to come back to 4 people to fund and find a legal consultant to get this done. I'm sorry, Mr. Latimer has his hand up.
Well,
Or did you?
no, I don't think so.
Oh, I
Bob.
apologize.
I think part of the problem is if you ask 10 people in town about the Historical Commission or the Historic Districts Commission, they don't know what either one does.
I totally concur.
And I think they need to have one commission or one committee
Bravo.
that deals with the town in its entirety, whether
Right.
it's in a historic district or not.
Bravo.
So that's something that those committees are going to have to work out.
I know.
And I share your frustration.
Yeah.
Because
You know, I was at the meeting last week that you held, you know, with the selectmen, and I was very encouraged to see the merging of the economic and financial stability with community development. And the comment was made that community development is not synonymous with land use. It's a more holistic grasp of what we care about and what we're going to stand for. And I hope that as you go forward this year, you're thinking in that kind of framework, because to Mr. Leary's point, why do we have 2 bodies doing bits of the same problem? It's like the blind men with the elephant, right?
I've always wondered that, and it's not historic anything that has a hold over that market. There are many other committees that there are 3 or 4 different entities dealing with the same thing, but in respect to your
Right.
problem, I would make an appointment to talk with the town manager and work through the selectmen, since you are appointed by the selectmen as a body.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Rich?
Again, reading from the statute, it says, "The commission may appoint such clerks and other employees as it may from time to time require." I think we've heard a good case for going to town meeting to fund at least a part-time position of somebody who would have the ability to both review historical significance and to have some basic drafting ability, and get before town meeting to fund a position.
That also
that would-
goes through the manager and the selectmen,
Yeah,
so that would be
but
their
it's right there in the
stop.
statute, they could do that.
Jim?
And you made a good case for it, so.
I think they have, but they're also, as a practicality, I think what we need is more people on the Historic Commission. We have a lot of people that get up at these meetings and talk and volunteer, but they don't really participate in the commission. And many times, the commission can't even hold a hearing because they don't even have a quorum. And so I think what really, if you want to talk to the town and the people that want to preserve property, you need to get involved, join the committees, go to their meetings, and be there when they have meetings, so when things come up, you can deal with them. I believe that we need more people in that committee to make it happen, and the 4 people that there, one of them goes on vacation, one of them's sick, nothing happens, and that's exactly what the situation we got ourselves in last year. You need more people on it, and you need more people that care, not just to come to meetings and complain about it. Show up at meetings and go to the hearings, and be part of it, is what we need.
So I'm going to cut this off now, because we have really put an awful
Too
lot of
much.
time into this
Renew my
talk.
motion to table.
Yes.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we will see what happens next week with Marlene taking this up. Okay, we're moving on now to a discussion of our joint meeting with the selectmen. And did Brian put a list together of?
You should all have one of these. And it has, so there's recommendations A through I.
Okay, this came out of our joint meeting, and the Cape Cod Commission, as we had requested, did, in my estimation, a fabulous job of looking at the whole surrounding area, the whole surrounding study area for the Spring Bars Road acquisition, but it's that whole area and how we should be moving ahead. When I talked with Brian, we were wanting to say, let's look at this and put this in a priority organization, because the commission staff is really anxious to continue working with us in planning for this whole large area. So as you can see here, we've got established transition area, define building forms along road frontage, develop master plans, strengthen pedestrian network, retain residential scale, potential TDR sending/receiving areas, expand green corridor, create safe crossings, intersection improvements. And this colored map gives us the areas in which they're suggesting these different actions. So what I spoke with Brian about is to put these actions into a priority order, that we'd like to start working on them for this area.
Richard is asking me what TDR is. It's Transfer of Development Rights.
Oh,
That's what that
Yeah.
acronym stands for.
All right, I got you.
Because the way it is currently written, we've discovered it really should be rewritten to allow certain things that we would like to accomplish. Because you can't do certain things now the way it is currently written.
The TDR bylaw.
With the TDR bylaw, yeah. So you haven't had a great deal of time to think about this. This is just new on your plate tonight.
Okay, can I just, so when we see it's TDR sending site means what we'd be doing from there is sending
Development
rights
rights.
to other areas where they would be more suitably used.
Right, so you're transferring those rights from one property into a bank or directly to other properties. There's
Right, okay. Yeah.
different ways of thinking about it.
No, I understand the context. It's like what the BRA does up in
Yeah.
Glasgow. Yeah. I
But our-
think just the acronym was.
Yeah.
Parking especially, yeah.
Yeah, our bylaw doesn't allow us this kind of flexibility right now to accomplish what we might want to accomplish. And it's not just this property, so it has greater applicability, I think.
Yeah, with the TDRs, you should be thinking about a system that would work townwide, obviously.
Currently, it's supposed to be in the same subdivision. Is that the language that's there?
Right now, our TDR bylaw only applies to subdivisions, and we have sending areas and receiving areas. So if you want to do a development in a sending area, and sending areas are usually places with ecological constraints, those rights can be transferred out of a sending area and moved to a different subdivision in a receiving area where we don't have some of those ecological concerns. The inflexibility that Pat's talking about is, one, it only works with new subdivisions, and the sending and receiving areas have to be subdividing at the same time, which is almost never happens. So I mentioned a bank.
Bank would solve the
A bank
problem.
process takes that timing issue
Okay,
out.
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. And so, because it's very rare that you would have two different, if the subdivisions are being done by the same developer, that's one thing, but it would be very rare to have two different subdivisions eligible at the same time with different developers.
Or even if they weren't developing at the same time, if somebody has two parcels, one they want to develop now that has sensitive issues, the other one they want to develop later, why shouldn't they be able to just say, well, we'll do a minimal development here in the sending area, but we'll be allowed to,
Yeah, our current bylaw has real constraints with everything has to be happening at the same
yeah,
time.
there's no real reason why that should be.
No.
So, we're not really taking any action on this now, are we?
We don't have to take any action on it tonight. We can discuss it if you'd like minimally, but I think this is a thought process we have to do. And the commission is ready, willing, and able to start working with us to accomplish certain of these things, such as, let's say, establish the transition zone, as you can see all along Worcester Court. Those little blue dots delineate that line. I'm not sure what it would take to, say, retain residential scale. Bylaws or what? I don't know.
Right, and some of these you have to go back to the report and you have to, so if you look at the orange areas, it's Route 28. So you need to think, your long-term redevelopment goals for Route 28 are your redevelopment goals for that to be residential. And if that's not your long-term goal, is to have residential development there, then this wouldn't be a high priority.
So that's why it's going to take larger thought to look at this. We had the review of the commission report, and now we've got to look at this and say, okay, what are our priorities here? I would say that myself, the TDR, the sooner we can get working on that, the better, because that allows us multiple options,
I agree with that.
okay?
My second one would be to develop a master plan. I think that area is critical, and I think in order for any redevelopment to occur there and have it as good redevelopment, I think we need to have a master plan. And when we're talking about residential areas along that corridor, I think that's where some zoning changes come into play that will allow mixed use and residential. So I think that's real key.
In the transition area,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
falls under master plan too,
Yeah.
for that whole area.
Yeah. And especially in light of some of the things we've talked about tonight.
The green corridor, that falls under master plan as
Right.
well for this whole area, so, yeah. Jim?
I would like it if we could put a layer in showing the floodplains too, because a lot of these areas, including Davis Straits, are affected by the floodplain. If we could see that on it too.
So what we do as a master plan will be...
Do an overlay with that on it as well, a layer. Right. I know where it is, but some of these areas here in particular are also in the floodplain.
Sure.
That's what got us over here, but there's a ridge that goes right back down and it's low again on this side.
Yeah. So I would say let's look at this, and I don't know what our schedule looks like as to whether we want to bring this up again next week, or next week may be kind of back.
Next week's getting a little full.
Okay. So we're looking at the first of the year before we discuss this in greater detail. But if you all concur with what Bob and I have said to a certain degree, that maybe master plan is way up there, Marlene.
I do want to, I don't want you to take a too narrow view of this, like, so when you're talking about developed master plan, they have identified specific lots to the mall, the Christmas tree plaza, what is that? That's the Hearth and Kettle Plaza?
Probably, yeah.
So they're saying master plan for those specific individual lots. But you shouldn't be constrained by that. If you're thinking more along the lines of master planning kind of for this whole area, then I don't want you to say, oh, well, master planning is not important because it's only for the mall lot.
I don't think that's
No,
what Bob and I had
no.
in mind. It
Okay.
was
I'm looking
the
at this whole
area
lot.
wide.
Okay.
Right up to the park.
Okay, so
The
when you
whole
look at the
corridor.
when you look at this map and you see, oh, well, master planning's only about that, don't let it limit you.
No, but that's why, when I was making my comments, the master plan incorporates a lot of these other things that they're bringing out here.
Yeah, so if you wanted to do like a neighborhood scale master plan, you would be talking essentially about all of these things, except for maybe the TDR. The TDR
Right.
you need to look at townwide.
Right.
Everything else will fall into a master planning process for this neighborhood.
Does this make sense to all of you at first blush here?
Well, there's a lot more we need to learn about the terms. And we want to have that little course on the transfer development rights and how to change the bylaw.
Right.
Can you remind me, when is the cutoff for bringing things to the next town meeting?
I think it's the second Friday in January, which I think might be like the 11th. But I'm not sure that's totally set yet. But it'll be, I hope it's not the first Friday in January.
Well, because we've talked about a couple of things that we would like to bring to that, and I think we need to prioritize our time in the next couple of weeks.
We don't have enough time to bring anything
We're talking
to,
about November.
Yeah.
We're definitely
Okay.
talking about November.
Okay, then.
Jim.
As far as timing goes, I think there's two really big things that the town has to do before we could even consider this, and it's the flow neutral bylaw and the sewer system, because we can't really be transferring development rights into an area where we're not going to put sewers in. It doesn't make any sense.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about specific. It's like LIC. We put it
Okay.
into effect, and then,
You see where it goes.
Okay, so, all right,
Especially if you create a bank, too.
and that's what I'm,
right.
I'm really
We
interested in
definitely could create
creating
a
a
bank and we could transfer, but applying them to an area we don't have sewers in is what I have an issue with.
Well, no, we would wait till, we just
That's
get.
the point.
we just get
I mean,
the
I'm saying we
authority
don't
to
have to
create the
rush. We got a
mechanism
few
to do
years.
that, So that we don't have to wait. When something comes up, then we already have the mechanism. and-
Right.
And the procedure is spelled out.
Agreed.
Or you apply them at a density that's appropriate for septic.
That's no problem. Yeah.
That's always the other option.
but with a bank, you have that
Ability to do
flexibility
more. Okay,
when an opportunity presents itself.
well said.
Okay. Anybody else have comments on this direction, the general direction at this point? Okay. We don't have any correspondence. Oh, what?
There were a
Yes.
couple more items under that last, do you want to say?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Do you
didn't-
want to say anything about the strategic plan? And do you want to say anything about a future workshop with the selectmen?
I don't know. Does anybody have any comments further about the Selectmen's strategic plan? I thought we really,
It was a good discussion.
yeah.
We should do it more often.
And they requested that we do it more often. The general feeling was that it was a very worthwhile meeting. We got a lot accomplished.
I think after we flesh out a few more things about the TDR bylaw and things like that, that would be a time to have another meeting with them.
Based upon the comments that they made, that they would really like to get together more frequently, and based upon the fact that we're looking at land use as the local comprehensive plan, I did speak with Julian and with a couple of the selectmen who indicated their interest in potentially a Saturday morning workshop, because this goes beyond what we do here as a planning board. If we do not get their agreement with the looking ahead for land use, and it's not just how are we going to zone it, it's a lot more in-depth than that, then it won't go anywhere. So the whole idea is to explore this with them and with the whole of the board here to really get some forward-looking here to what we might be looking for the next 25, 50, 100 years. Ralph?
Right, the one thing, the only place where the planning board is mentioned in their strategic plan is 1.2.3, which says address parking management / needs assessment throughout the community and identify opportunities. I would ask our staff to maybe query them a little bit more about the specifics of what they're saying when they want a needs assessment throughout the community and identify opportunities. Is that something that we would be doing at this workshop, that we would be, proposing in the future? I mean, the needs assessment of a town can be a huge thing.
And I think they indicated that.
We're required to do a needs assessment for the Community Preservation Committee only for the categories that we're charged dealing with. But the needs assessment for a town, I mean, that's huge.
And I think Doug Jones indicated that it's huge.
Yeah.
And that they would be working towards that needs assessment for the whole town.
Started in July.
And I think one of the things that they identified was, the question to be answered was, do we want to consider creating more industrial zone land? Because we have a shortage of it. That was one of the ones that we talked about, only briefly, but.
That's what the EDIC.
Right.
Planning there, yeah. And that's going to be a subcommittee. They indicated they are not themselves going to be doing hands-on, but working through subcommittees or committees.
But I think they wanted input from us on that as well. No?
No.
Okay.
No, I indicated that we've got an economic development element, and to what degree will that be looked at? And Jim said, I'm on the EDIC now, I will make sure that they look at it, so.
All right.
Okay.
But it's not supposed to start according to their bar until July, so.
Right.
We have time to think about it. But
Right.
I'd like to know, I'd like just a little clarification of what they're talking about there.
Sure, I can get a better definition on that. It's specific to parking needs, but I can get them to better define that.
Well,
Yeah, Paul.
discussion at the joint meeting was prompted by the parking meters in Town Hall. And reference to this particular document was a much larger study, parking study for the community, which I presume is Woods Hole as well as Falmouth and perhaps other areas. So it's very, very different. And I made the comment that to implement parking meters is just a piecemeal solution to a much bigger problem that has to be addressed first.
And that's why they want to do the study.
The other issue, I had mentioned, I thought the planning board could help out in other areas, and one of the areas I thought was pretty obvious was 2.3.2, which is the needs for the coastal structures and so forth. And that's part of what the subcommittee is doing, so I think it's really important the planning board participate in that particular one. Right now, just the Waterways Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And there's several other areas where I think planning department staff and the planning board probably should get involved as well. I think we have to look at that.
Okay, so waterways and structures there. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Bob?
I just have a point of order. I neglected to read into the record about the A&R for the site plan review to construct a square foot building for golf maintenance and administrative facilities on 4.292 acres at the Woods Hole Golf Club. Abutters notices were sent by regular mail on December 3rd, 2013, and publishing dates in the Enterprise were November 29th, 2013, and December 3rd, 2013.
Thank you, and I neglected to call for that, too. Okay. Anything else? There's no correspondence this week.
Didn't we get something by email?
You get correspondence.
Well, we did, but, wait a minute, is it tucked
From the
behind?
CPC.
Yes, it is tucked behind here. Nope, it's not. In the correspondence folder, there is nothing.
From the CPC?
That was the CPC.
Regarding the request for us to
Right.
move forward with
It
the,
just came
We
today.
haven't received the signed letter yet, so when we have the official signed letter, it'll be in your file. But we wanted to
You've all seen
send it ahead since we did get it electronically.
Yeah.
okay.
So you've all seen it. Okay. Anything else? Anything for future agenda items?
That specific letter, yes or no?
Yes, but now you understand why it's not in the folder tonight.
Right, but I
Okay.
think it's appropriate to be on next week's agenda.
Fine.
Right, when we get the signed copy, it'll be in that week's correspondence.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion? Not from you. You like staying here forever, huh? All right, who's
That we
good?
adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.